Right, what's happening, people, and welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. Now, before we start the video, I want to start off by thanking all of you lot, because the growth on my channel has literally been ridiculous over the last couple of months, and that is down to all of you lot liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting. It's really overwhelming. I'm really appreciative, and I want to urge you to carry on doing the same, because if you like the content, you want to see more coming from myself, bigger and better videos, then please keep doing what you lot are doing, because that is the way that this channel is going to grow. Now, I love my football club, whether it's Abramovich or Todd Bowley. The furniture changes, but the house stays the same. And if you thought that when Roman Abramovich left Chelsea Football Club that we would no longer be sitting at the table with the big boys, you were very wrong. If you thought that after Todd Bowley's initial £700 million cash injection we would be done in the transfer market, you were again wrong. And if you thought after taking Moises Caicedo away from the grasps of Liverpool there was no chance that we would be getting Romeo Lavia as well, you, my friend, were once again very wrong. But let's be honest, more or less all of you watching this are Chelsea fans, and for that reason, you lot already know how the biggest club in London operate, and therefore maybe you weren't surprised at all by any of this. But I've got to be honest, I was a bit surprised. I did genuinely think that after we took Moises Caicedo off of Liverpool, we probably wouldn't be in for Romeo Lavia as well. But it turns out that Chelsea wanted Lavia too. Lavia declared he was a blue, and the £58 million transfer went through. That was good, wasn't it? You like that? But I do want to answer the question in this video that a lot of pundits are asking at the moment, and that is, did Chelsea really need Romeo Lavia as well as Moises Caicedo? And the answer to that is, what's it matter? We got them both, so mind your own business. Right, people, that is the end of another video. No, I'm joking. Let's talk Romeo Lavia. Now, let's start off by addressing the narrative that's floating about at the minute that in Romeo Lavia, Chelsea have pretty much just bought a less advanced version of Moises Caicedo, and that's just not true. I have no doubt that if Liverpool had have secured the signing of Romeo Lavia, they would have played him in more or less the same position that they would have played Moises Caicedo in. But I genuinely can see a world where Romeo Lavia and Moises Caicedo play in the same lineup for Chelsea. So let's say Mauricio Pochettino lines up this Chelsea side in his preferred 4-2-3-1 formation. Well, I can see Moises Caicedo and Romeo Lavia sitting as the defensive two in that midfield pivot. And what about Enzo Fernandez, you're thinking? Well, I think that Enzo Fernandez has now shown on multiple occasions that his game's probably best suited to being a little bit further forward, being a bit more creative. I know we didn't see him play that role last season, but I do genuinely think that we can get the best out of him playing in that way. Now, I could also see Romeo Lavia playing as part of a closer midfield three, maybe occupying the space just in front and to the side of Moises Caicedo, while it again allows Enzo Fernandez to have a little bit of a more floating free role, which will suit his creativity massively. And also, if you go back to that 4-2-3-1 formation, look, I understand that absolutely none of us want to see Reece James miss a single minute of football this season. He is our starting right back, and I am very happy with that. And I've been very impressed by the addition of Malo Gusto from what I've seen in him in pre-season so far, and a little bit of him against Liverpool. However, we would be silly to not have options should Reece James not be fit and available for selection. And as much as I rate Malo Gusto, I think when you look at the performances that Moises Caicedo put in at right back a couple of times last season for Brighton, his ability to carry the ball, I do think that that is another option that we could see Caicedo drifted into that right back position, and then Romeo Lavia would obviously start alongside Enzo Fernandez in that midfield pivot. And also, like, going by the comments that I'm hearing off pundits on various different sort of media outlets and whatnot, it's like a lot of these people have never, ever seen a team play with two sixes. Like, it's this anomaly that has never happened before. It's like, look at our Champions League final winning side. You know, we had Kante and Jorginho, and yes, albeit they're very different players, but at the same time, no one can deny that in that match, they played as two sort of sixes. And like I say, people are assuming that there's only room for one of the likes of Moises Caicedo or Romeo Lavia because of the presence of Enzo Fernandez and the fact that we saw Enzo Fernandez in that position last season. But I would argue that we never saw the best of Enzo Fernandez last season, albeit, you know, he didn't really put a foot wrong. But I do think that having the license to roam forward a little bit and link up with that front line a little bit more is going to free up Enzo Fernandez's game, and Romeo Lavia and Moises Caicedo can be a pivotal part in helping him do that, like we saw against Liverpool. And also, you might be thinking, well, what about Nkunku when he comes back? Because he plays in the 10. But Nkunku's already shown in his time at RB Leipzig and, you know, in the French national team that he can play anywhere across that front line as well as number 9. So, look, it's a good problem to have. We've got tremendous strength in depth, and Romeo Lavia is only going to add to that. And I get that Moises Caicedo and Romeo Lavia are two players that maybe Liverpool or another team might have brought in to do the same job, but that doesn't mean they're the same player. They've got very different attributes, and although they can do a similar job, I do think in this Chelsea team, they will be relied upon to do very different jobs. If you look at Moises Caicedo, one of the best things he's good at is tackling, winning the ball, bringing it forward and carrying it before distributing it to what I would perceive as being one of the more creative players like an Enzo Fernandez. And the way he normally does that is via a short pass. However, a key trait that we've seen from Romeo Lavia, and maybe not so much from Moises Caicedo, is Lavia's ability at long-range passing. He will win the ball and then often look straight away to switch it over the top to runners in behind, or, you know, he does that lovely little chipped passing over the top to the number 9 or the right winger. And if you haven't seen this, I'm sure you'll be able to notice it straight away if you look at maybe some of his YouTube compilations and things like that. And the ability and confidence that Romeo Lavia has to attempt these long-range passes, also tied in with his vision of picking the right man with these long-range passes, give him a very, very different dynamic to Caicedo. So I could see Caicedo maybe tackling, winning the ball, winning possession, putting it onto Romeo Lavia, who I believe he'll be positioned fairly close to, and then that ball goes straight over the top. Romeo Lavia had a 77% success rate with his long-range passes, and actually that's very, very high when it comes to ranking long-range passes. You know, it was a lot higher than Enzo Fernandez, for example. A player that I've been a long-term admirer of is Frankie de Jong. At one point I was hoping that Chelsea would bring him in, and Romeo Lavia actually ranks higher in that metric of success rate with long-range passes than even Frankie de Jong does. His ability to recover the ball ranked highest out of any teenager in the Premier League last season. That was a list that included our very own Levi Colwill, who I believe would be a first-team starter for us this season. And what that adds to is the fact that I really want to see an intensity from this side. You know, keep the ball, and if you lose it, win it again very, very quickly. And Romeo Lavia is going to be a key part of that because of his ability to make those recovery runs and win the ball back once we lose possession. And speaking of lists that he as a teenager topped, he was the team with by far the most tackles in the Premier League last season, by far the most interceptions, and he also ranked only second to Jude Bellingham when it came to teams with the most blocks across Europe's top 5 leagues last season. So look, I'm no expert, but that in my opinion is why Romeo Lavia is worth the money for Chelsea at this moment in time. And no, I didn't know every single one of them stats off the top of my head. Do you know why? Because I've got a life. Anyway, nonetheless, I was very, very impressed by Romeo Lavia both times I saw him play against my club Chelsea last season, and now his club, and not just the game at St Mary's where obviously they turned us over and Romeo Lavia scored a bit of a outside of the box banger, but just watching him play in general, it didn't look like you were watching a 19-year-old. Very, very, very confident, you know. I'm not comparing him to Jude Bellingham, but I get that same feeling when I watch Jude Bellingham. It's like, how are you 19 or whatever Jude Bellingham now is? So yeah, it didn't look like you were watching a young player. It looked like you were watching a very mature head in there, and he's going to be vital for us, isn't he? Because of everything I've just said, I really don't understand how there's so many people who can't see Romeo Lavia playing in the same 11 as Moises Caicedo. But what about away from the tactical side of things? I have always said, even with the acquisition of Moises Caicedo, we always needed another body in that midfield. And when you look at the fact that Liverpool, a direct rival of ours this season, were in for Moises Caicedo and Romeo Lavia, having acquired both those talents, we have significantly weakened Liverpool in the short term until they can maybe find a replacement. And look, if they can, then brilliant, but I don't think they're going to get anyone as good as Romeo Lavia or Moises Caicedo. The other thing as well is some people might say, well, Man City aren't on your radar just yet, you know, and maybe so. Maybe this season they might not be on our radar just yet, but we're not acquiring all this talent and we're not building this squad to not look at competing in years to come, and Man City will be right up there. And when you look at the fact that Man City had, what was it, a £40 million buyback clause in Romeo Lavia's contract that was coming into effect next summer, better we get him now than Man City get him, because Rodri's not going to go on forever. And with the way that Romeo Lavia was progressing, he could then have gone to Man City next summer for, I wouldn't say a snip price, but in today's market, definitely a snip price, and significantly improved them and made it harder for us to mount a title challenge in seasons to come. And let's not forget that Romeo Lavia, as well as pretty much everyone we're bringing in at the minute, has serious sell-on value. So let me give you a little analogy here. You know, like those geeky sort of comic book fellas who used to buy like action figures, yeah, but they never used to unbox them. They used to just stack them up and store them and whatever. And when I was a kid and I used to see it in movies, on TV or whatever, I used to sort of think like, what's up with this matey? Like, why doesn't he just unbox it and play with it like I would want to? And yeah, maybe that's how we've got to start looking at our transfer strategy. I get that we sold Eden Hazard and a couple of other players for big fees, but we weren't really generating a load of money from player sales under Roman Abramovich, and maybe that wasn't the most sustainable way to run a football club. And now it looks like possibly that is the route that we're going down in terms of bringing these young players in, nurturing them, progressing them, sending them out on loan, and then turning hefty profits on them. So as much as the child in me and you wants to unbox that shiny new toy and play with it, maybe it's better to hold the value on it or even improve the value on it over time, and that's going to be a more sustainable way to run this football club going forward. And now I genuinely do see that as the path we're going down. Like, if not, then, you know, what are we doing? So we have got to sort of get our heads round the fact that Ugochukwu, Andre Santos, maybe even David Datro Fofana are all players that have been brought in for that purpose, and we won't see them, you know, become club legends, first team starters and whatever, and we might just have to accept that. But look, I don't know. What I do know is this. In the likes of Romeo Lavia, we have brought in a seriously talented player who I don't believe has been brought in to sit on the bench. And what you've also got to think about is this. Todd Bowley and, more importantly, Mauricio Pochettino, yes, are in the first game of the season, coming up to the second game against West Ham. However, they will be looking at the bigger picture, yeah? They will have one eye already on next season and seasons to come. And because of that, it's not the end of the world if every single player that we're bringing in at the minute isn't going to be given loads and loads of minutes this season, because next season, the games are going to come thick and fast. We are going to, of course, be back in Europe. We are going to have Champions League football to contend with, and we will have a massively more bloated fixture schedule that we will need squad depth to contend with. So as easy as it is to hit the panic button now and say, oh no, we're doing the same thing, we're just developing a massively over-bloated squad again, I do genuinely think that there is method behind the madness here. Anyway, as always, I'm very eager to drop this video so that I can get a gauge on your thoughts. Are you happy with the addition of Romeo Lavia? Do you want to see him playing alongside Moises Caicedo? If so, how do you think they fit in the team together? And again, I do just want to thank you lot. Really appreciative of everything you're doing at the moment, all the comments. I'm trying to get back to as many of you as I possibly can, but as I'm growing, it's like there's hundreds of comments coming in. I'm really trying my hardest. I see a lot of these names all the time now that I'm like, yeah, that's a long-term subscriber and whatnot. And also the opportunities it's giving me. Look, I would love to be doing this full time. At the moment, I still work a job. I still do personal training, teaching boxing, as well as doing this podcast. So I'm working flat out at the minute, but it's not a sob story, you know. I'm very happy for the results I'm getting. This weekend, I'm actually appearing on The Kickoff, hosted by True Geordie, which I'm guessing if you lot watch my channel, a lot of you have seen that that show, which is obviously, yeah, top tier when it comes to YouTube football podcasts, football watch-alongs and that. That's Saturday night, so if you want to tune in, I'll be more than grateful. That'd be really good. I'm buzzing for that. But yeah, it's overwhelming to see these sort of opportunities and things that I'm getting out of here now. And look, it is my hard work, but it all comes down to you lot engaging and you lot helping give me that push. So, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate it. When for anyone that's watched this channel for quite a while, you'll know that I used to box. I boxed for 8 years, right? And when I stopped boxing, I was very lost, you know what I mean? I didn't really know what to do myself. So now this YouTube channel's given me a real focus to drive all my energy into. So I'm really appreciative of it. So thank you very much. I love all your comments. I love reading them. And I've got big plans for the channel, and hopefully we do stuff together in the future. I'm thinking about trying to get hold of a couple of Chelsea tickets for a game soon, and then do some sort of giveaway for a ticket, and someone can come and watch the game with me or something like that on the channel. So if that's something you like the sound of, let me know in the comments, and I'll try and get something like that sorted for, you know, next couple of months. But yeah, I'll see you lot all in the next one.